All right, let's talk a little bit about global functions, numbers, and math. In my file here, I've got the parseint function, and you'll notice I don't preface it with anything here. That's the hallmark of a global function. There are some functions that you can call in JavaScript that don't need any object to help them because they're available at the global level. Parseint is an excellent example of this. If you have a string, you want to convert it into an integer, we can just pass this string in here, and it will return to us the numeric representation of the string that we passed in. So if I run this, there we go, 234. If I had a decimal value in my number, in my string, it's going to strip that off. So it's going to do its best job to try and convert this. If it starts off with a string, not a number, that's going to be the result. That's what this NaN represents, is not a number. Now, there are other values that we can put inside here. Like if I put the string afterwards, that's going to work with the 234. There's a second parameter that we can specify here. That's the radix, or the base. This means base 10 numbers. The decimal number system, which is what we use every day, day-to-day living. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 10 numbers before you jump to the next decimal place. So 0 through 9, and then you get to 10. So there's 2 columns, 2 digits. Parseint also works for other bases. Any number between 2 and 36 can be entered in here. So if I was to say 16, the hexadecimal number system, 234 could be a hexadecimal number. If we run this, 564 is the hexadecimal equivalent of this. If we put in F, that is a valid string in hexadecimal, which represents the number 15. FF is 255. There we are, 255. We can put in 2. We want a binary number. So let's say I had this in my string. When I convert it, there we go. This is 10,927 written in binary. So if you have a string which represents a number, you can then say, convert this into an actual integer in this base. Now, if you don't specify the base, the default is 10. It is the base 10 number. There we go. So it's just giving me the string equivalent of that. It's stripped off this, and it's saying that this is just a decimal number. So what do we have here? There's it's millions and billions, so 10 trillion, 101 billion, 10 million, 101,111 is the number that we get back. Okay, that's the parseint. That is the global function. Now, numbers. With numbers, we also have a parseint method. So I'm going to leave this one up here, and we're going to create a new one. Say let. Actually, we should be using let everywhere, so I'll change that one to let as well. Let num equals. There's our new number. Now, I want to call the parseint, but I want to use the number parseint method. This one starts with the number object itself, not our variable, but number.parseint. And then we pass in 2 things. One is the number that we want to parse. That's the only required one. There's also an optional base, but I'm just going to run this once like this. Console log num. There we go. We're going to overwrite num with this. Here, we'll reuse our results. We leave num alone. All right, there we go. So 234. No surprises there. It took this number and it parsed it. Now we can take this number as a string as well. Here, I'll do a string version of it in another variable, just so we have both of them to work with. There we go. can pass in this string. There we go, working just fine. I'm going to comment this just to reduce the amount of space that we're taking up over here. Now the radix base 10 should give us the exact same result, 234 as we expected. 16 hexadecimal 564. So it's behaving the same way as the one up here. Now, one other method I want to bring up here for the numbers is very useful, especially when you're dealing with currency amounts, and that is the toFixed function. So inside of here, I'm going to create another method, or call another method rather. I'm going to use my variable num, so my 234, and what I want to do is I want to convert this into something with a specific number of decimal places. When I run this, I'm going to be taking this number, 234.236 blah blah blah, and converting it to a fixed number of decimal places, so 2 decimal places in this case. So it's rounding this off. This being a 6, we'll change that to a 4. If I was to say I wanted 4 decimal places, we'll run it again. There we go. I get 4 decimal places. So very useful function. And the final thing that I want to look at today is with the math functions. The math object that you get in JavaScript gives you access to a whole bunch of methods. You can see there's a big long list of them here. I'm just going to look at a couple of them. One of them being the round function. It's going to do the same thing as toFixed. It's going to take your number and we're going to round it off, and it's going to return to me an integer. There we go, 234. So because the first decimal place was a 2, it rounded down. Now there are very similar ones. We can say that math.floor, when we call that one, it always rounds down. Math.ceiling always rounds up. So floor goes down, ceiling goes up, and then there we'll console log all of these. There we go. So rounding, we get 234. Floor gives us 234. Ceiling gives us 235. So it always rounds up. There's a math.random function, which will generate for us a random number between 0 and 1. So here we go. 15 decimal places somewhere between 0 and 1. So it's always going to be a decimal, but you can multiply the 0 to the 1 by any number at all to give you a random number in any range that you need. And the last one that I wanted to look at was the math.max, or there's also min, which will work in the exact same way. Let's say you've got a whole bunch of numbers, 97, 77, 7, 37, 47, 57. This will determine from your list of numbers, you can pass it an array of numbers if you want, which is the largest in that list. 97. That is the largest one we have in our list. So we've got math, we've got random, we've got ceiling, we've got floor, and then with the number methods, there's a few that use the number object, there's a few that you use on a variable and you pass in another parameter, and then there's also global functions like parseint. So I encourage you very strongly to go to the MDN website. I'll put that in the comments, the links to that, and get familiar with these methods so you understand how you can work with numbers and how you can manipulate them. There's tons and tons of methods in there to look at.